Alright guys, so today I'll be giving you guys a tutorial on how to set up your car for F1 2013, and pretty much all these setups can convert to pretty much every track on the game, so I'm just going to take you guys through that. I decided not to do most of my setups for the remaining tracks on the calendar because, you know, as I said before, the setups are pretty much transferable across most of the tracks on this game, but you guys have been requesting me to do setup videos, so I thought I'd sort of answer all the, you know, track requests in one video, so you guys can take this and apply this to pretty much every track on the game and possibly future games if the handling model stays the same. But you know, I'm just going to go through it now. We'll start off with the aero, and what I've found is that the rear wing is pretty much useless on this game. It doesn't provide any benefit, and I don't know of any situations where you need any rear wing angle, so we're just going to leave it at 1 for now on this game. But the front wing is pretty variable. It depends on what session you're in. If you're in qualifying, you probably want more front wing angle. I tend to run with 4-1 wings, depending on the track. For maybe high downforce tracks, you might want 5-1 wings, or maybe even 6. I probably wouldn't even go any higher than that, because after that you start to lose a bit of straight line speed, so you don't want that. But in qualifying, because you've got DRS, your top speeds are pretty good, and your acceleration is very good as well. You can get away with higher aero, but for the race, when you've got fuel in the car and you're trying to pass people, you need straight line speed, so you need to lower that down to about 3, possibly even 2-1 for most tracks. But you know, 3-1 wings, 4-1 wings is pretty balanced across qualifying and the race on pretty much every track on the game, so that's a pretty safe bet. And I'd probably use that as a base setup for pretty much every track on the game. So moving on to the next setting, and that's braking. I tend to run with 48-52 high standard. You could run with high large, but I found that, you know, the responsiveness of the braking isn't as good as standard brake size. You could go with small as well if you really want good sharp and punchy brakes, but you know, it doesn't provide that same stopping power that standard does. So that's pretty much where you want to be in terms of balance. You know, balance, it does come down to personal preference. If you want if you want to avoid like front locking of the tires, I'd go with that. But if you really want to stop the car as much as you can and sort of avoid oversteer sometimes under braking, you could go with like 49-51. But you know, 48-52 is fairly good. But we'll move on to the next setting, and that's balance. I tend to go with 111. The front anti-roll bar will give you more steering response, and it'll sort of make you quicker in qualifying, but in the race it sort of wears out your front tires a little bit quicker. So that's the trade-off when you have a higher front anti-roll bar. So I tend to go with 111, and it seems to be fairly capable in both qualifying and the race. So moving on to suspension, and you know, this doesn't change too much. You know, 1-1, 11-11 will suit you fairly well for most tracks. But I've found out recently from the Apex Online Racing, or the TRL guys, they tend to use 11-1, 11-11, which I'm not too sure what the benefit is. Alex Gillen has said that it gives you better straight line speed, whereas other people have said that the front ride height gives you better turn in and better grip. So let me know in the comments which one it actually is, or if it's actually both, because I'd very much like to know. But yeah, it seems that 11-1, 11-11 is the way to go in this game, and I tried it out around Abu Dhabi and it seemed to work fairly well, so I'm guessing it's fairly it works fairly well across most of the tracks in the game, I'd have to guess at that. So that's that, and we'll move on now to the gearbox. And the gearbox is quite changeable from track to track. You really need to suss out what sort of gearbox you need for each track. If you have a track like Budapest, for example, where it's very technical, there's lots of corners, and it's a very sort of high downforce kind of track, you really want a lower gearbox, whereas like Monza, you want a really tall gearbox to maximize your straight line speed and acceleration. But for the most part, my gearbox kind of looks like this. It's sort of like an upward staircase for the first few gears, just to give it a bit of stability as you exit corners and stuff, but then the higher gears sort of ease off a bit, and they get lower and lower. So that helps the top line acceleration. So you kind of got the best of both worlds there. But as I said, the gearbox changes from track to track, and you could pretty much... okay, my gearbox looks pretty much like that for every track on the game, but depending on the track, like Monza, if I wanted a gearbox for Monza, it would look like this. I'd just make every gear taller. It'd still have that same look about the gearbox, just to maximize the straight line acceleration and top speed. So that's pretty much what my gearboxes look like for pretty much every track in the game. Of course, you'll have to adjust that for the track that you're at, obviously. So hopefully that helps. And then moving on to engine, you don't need to worry about that. Alignment, the camber you want to be to the far left, so that gives you full negative camber. That gives you better cornering ability. It does hurt tyre wear in theory, but with Codemasters the tyre wear is scripted pretty much. So no matter what setup you run on this game, your tyre wear will be pretty much the same across all tracks. So there are some slight variables that come into tyre wear, like going on the grass and stuff and spinning out. That will of course hurt your tyre wear, but in terms of setups, it really doesn't make that much of an impact. So that's the alignment. The toe is to the far right. I believe that gives better straight line speed, so that's what you want. Moving it further to the left will give you better steering response, but of course it will hurt you on the straights. So overall, that's the best alignment to run with. That's pretty much been the case since F1 2010, so there's no point in changing that. You'll only be making yourself slower. So that's pretty much the setup that I run for every track on this game. Of course, if you have any suggestions or improvements to the setups, then leave them in the comments. I'd be eager to see what you guys think of that, because there may well be some things that I've missed, because I haven't exactly been sweating the setups as much as I have on 2013, really because I haven't been in a competitive league like I have been in previous games. But that setup that I've showed you here, I'll just go through it once again. It is fairly capable on every single track on the game, in every single car, in every game mode. The setups really don't need to change that all that much. Contrary to popular belief, the setups do work for pretty much every car and every track. So that's been this video for today. I hope you guys have thoroughly enjoyed it. More importantly, I hope you guys really learned something from this, because I do get a lot of requests about setups and advice and tips and all that sort of thing. So I hope you guys have learned something here. Hopefully you guys can be a little bit faster now and beat your main rivals or whatever. But that's been this video for today. Until my next one, guys, I'll see you next time.